Hey everybody, welcome to the first day of fall. Storm talk will continue because usually we do see a second severe weather season as we head into the fall. So we're not ready to go to snow talk just yet, but it isn't that far away either. Alright, when it comes to severe weather, we're not exactly in a pattern for that because high pressures can control much of the eastern half of the country. Just two areas of tropical moisture providing showers and storms, one to our west, one to our east, and that'll be the main threat until about Friday. Then notice the one to the east kind of gets a little bit closer to us, to at least the Smoky Mountains here on Friday. We'll get into that in a second. First off, let's talk about how nice it is at the moment. 63 degrees outside, 55 in Austin, and 56 into Salem, warming up nicely once again. So we're talking about temperatures very close to yesterday. We had 85 yesterday. Should be about 85, 86 again for this afternoon. Alright, visible satellite and the radar. You can see the tropical moisture that was a tropical depression south of the Baja Peninsula of California is now moving into the Midwest, upper Midwest I should say. And then we got our coastal low here we were watching just east here of Savannah. High pressure is centered right in through here, and it's acting as our protector. It's an elongated high pressure, so it's acting to block the system from the west from hitting us and the system to the east. I addressed this issue yesterday about this setup. Now, the one concern I had yesterday, and it's been a concern we've had pretty much all week, is will this high remain strong to the north and allow some weakness to develop here on the southern edge of that? And if that were to be the case, then that would allow some of this to break off and work in its direction here with some clouds and moisture. And it turns out the models, at least since yesterday, are starting to trend at least in that direction. But it's not a sure thing, so that's why we're not going to go gun-ho on the idea of rain or anything. But notice the cloud shield. Just the cloud shield alone is expanding with the moisture fields aloft. But keep in mind, we're very dry, especially in the lower levels of the atmosphere in our area. So even if this thing can spread a good shield of clouds over us starting Friday into the weekend, getting precipitation to fall from those clouds that can reach the ground is going to be the next biggest challenge the system will have. It's not entirely out of the question because the models at least forecast dew points to rise high enough that raindrops would make it and we could have some showers around. But it's a big if, because if the models are not correct on that idea and are too moist, then we will end up with a lot of virga where we have some rain on the radar but doesn't make it to the ground, or we just end up with cloud cover only. So that's where we're going. Low rain chances for now. Pretty high confidence though on more on the cloud action of the scenario. And when you look at the computer models, I mean there's many of them that are looking into the system. You see the trend that we've had happen here where they're trying to at least bring in pieces of this into the Ohio Valley, and some take this actually to the southwest in the northeast Gulf of Mexico and some to the northeast. But notice there's none now taking it due north because of that blocking high. So it's got to go somewhere. The question is, where? So let's start off with one of the models. Here's the GFS. As we head into Friday afternoon, again, sometimes these models are not exactly correct on the highs, but just look at the general idea of the number. And it's forecasting the clouds to increase by Friday afternoon. Any rainfall looks to be southeast Kentucky. And again, here's the core of it, more toward Hatteras. This is a little wave or an outer band, if you will, if I want to give it a tropical term. But cloud cover moves in and temperatures around 80 or so for Friday. As we head into Friday night, into Saturday. Cloud cover a little thicker. The model trying to cool us down on Saturday, only in the 70s at best, with showers again mainly East Kentucky, where you get a little more help from the mountains actually, or graphic lift can help produce some showers in the mountainous areas of Tennessee and Kentucky, while the core of the rain still mainly to our east. And then by Sunday, most of it begins to move out, maybe a spotty shower here on the back side, but more sun begins to break through the clouds, and Sunday will begin the rebound process. Here is the European model as we went into Friday. It's a little more aggressive, and again, the grid on this model is not great. So it's a little more chunky or bulky, if you will, with the data. But it does show the increased cloud cover, rapid cloud cover increase on Friday. Therefore, we don't get very warm, only in the 70s on Friday. Main rain shield, again, mainly southern eastern Kentucky, but it does move over Friday night into portions of Saturday, passing showers around, barely hitting 70. It's giving Nashville 68 degrees. Getting a few showers possible on Saturday, and then the core as it moves out. Same thing with the GFS. We'll begin to get some thinning of the cloud cover by Sunday to allow us to get the warm back up. Now, the NAM model cannot go that far out, but it can go into at least Friday. And by Friday afternoon, it sends a band of moisture toward our area and cloud cover. Does allow us enough morning sun to get us into the 70s, but by the evening hours, some spotty showers around the area. But again, this is the only short-range model right now that can somewhat see. The other models are the grids are not as great, but it gives us a general idea anyway of that the spaghetti plot, we call that, with all those tracks going everywhere, that the idea of something tracking a little more west-northwest into our area, the confidence on that has grown, but especially on the cloud part of it, the rain part of it, I still am not confident on at all, so I'm only maxing the percentages of rain right now at 20%. I got to urge caution here. We got a lot of events going on this weekend. We got a lot of events going on every day, really, not just the weekend. So don't cancel your plans, don't alter them, just stay very close to the forecast. As we get more data, we'll get a better handle on the track of this. When these are like rogue systems like this, where they don't have an obvious path to go, we really just have to figure out where, not just where this system is going to go, but we got to figure out the position of the high. We got to figure out the tropical moisture to the north. We got to figure out positions of low pressures in Canada. We got to look at the entire northern hemisphere in some cases to really try to balance out and see if we can find out the direction this will take. And that takes time and a lot of data to go through. So we appreciate your patience on that part of the forecast. As far as amounts go, depending on the path it takes, I mean, again, the Euro is a little more bulky with the grid, so it's a little higher, but they all at least give us something, a few raindrops at least out of this through Saturday. So we'll keep an eye on it. All right, so that's that. After that goes by, I think we warm back up again. Once that low moves out of the way, I think we'll have temperatures back into the upper 80s maybe by the last few days of September. Meanwhile, while this is going on, we've got typhoons out here across the Western Pacific. Now, this is the season. When you get into October, excuse me, when you get into October, the recurving typhoon theory is when you get a lot of typhoons that recurve around Japan, they get caught up in the northern flow in Alaska, and then eventually can lead to deep troughs or cool or cold blast into the eastern United States about 8 to 14 days later, depending on the intensity of that typhoon and other factors as well. But in general, about a week or a week and a half. We're getting to that time now where we got to start paying attention to these recurving typhoons. And we've got one, and here's one now. Now watch what happens to it. It gets pulled into Alaska as we head into the 28th. Meanwhile, another one is beginning to develop, by the way, to the west. And then as we head into the 3rd of October, and this is where the model stops, this particular model run, but we're getting a lot more activity of recurving typhoons moving through the area. So we have plenty of opportunity now for some cold air to attack into the eastern part of the country. And the GFS, granted, I don't think it's going to be exactly like this. It's hard to see this map. This is the United States, by the way. It has got one of those systems really carving a very deep trough into the United States, including right here in Kentucky. In fact, it has us in the 30s at night, in 20s in some cases. Again, not saying that's forecast at all, but I want you to look at the overall pattern here, not specifics. And you see these little dips that are happening, and it's because these typhoons are creating more troughs to come through. Now, here's the debate we're going to have. Are we going to be faced with a scenario where we get these recurving typhoons that can deepen into pretty good areas of low pressure into Canada, but are they going to keep being progressive and head off to the east to Nova Scotia and then out into the Atlantic Ocean and don't have a chance to dip at all into the eastern United States? The determining factor on that is really going to be the NAO. If it can go negative, it will allow for a blocking pattern and allow for a better chance for at least one or two of these fronts to really dig in deep with a trough. May not last very long, but at least dig to give us some cool shots. And the latest run of the NAO is still a little unclear how it's going to go, but it is certainly trying to show a negative trend once we cross into October. And that's the reason why I'm not ruling out some decent, cool shots. May not be just one either, because we have a couple of recurving typhoons. Could be a couple of troughs developing in the first 15 days of October. So we'll see how it plays out, but that's my latest thinking anyway, looking at the data, how things will look. We just got to get through this headache for the weekend first, and then we'll get into that and figure it out. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on midday.